Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome once more to the first edition of the eTourism Revolution Talks, an exchange hub to discuss the future of tourism, usually in a short format, composed by powerful talks from experts around the world. This session today is part of the Accelerating Travel Recovery series, where we bring top global innovators to give us their advice and guidance into their areas of expertise. Welcome to this fantastic talk. I'm your host, 𝗬𝗃𝘁𝘂𝗿𝗲. And today, I'm very honored to have Sister Reem, a leading tourism expert who will share with us 13 signals of what a post-COVID-19 new normal will look like in 1 year from now, as well as discuss action plans for travel agencies, hotels, destinations, as well as governments. Sister Reem, welcome to the show.
Thank you, 𝗬𝗃𝘁𝘂𝗿𝗲. Thank you very much for inviting me to be a guest on this show.
Alhamdulillah, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Can you please take a minute to introduce yourself, say what you do, and also where you are based?
Yes, of course. So I'm Director of Growth Strategies at DinarStandard, which is a growth strategy research and advisory firm. We have our main offices in New York, we have offices in Dubai, and our team is global. We have a global team in most of the main cities around the world. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. Right now, I'm on vacation in Colorado, so therefore the background. And back to DinarStandard, so we focus on providing fact-based insights and strategic advice to help clients achieve responsible growth. And I specialize in travel, so specifically halal and sustainable travel, and also I have a marketing background. So I lead the firm's travel-related research work as well as lead marketing campaign execution. And also DinarStandard, among the work that we do, we produce the annual State of the Global Islamic Economy Report with the support of the Dubai Islamic Economy Center.
Okay, that's great. And I'm really look forward because I know that you have prepared a great presentation for us, right?
Thank you. Yes, I'll be sharing a brief that we prepared a few weeks ago because a lot of our clients have been asking what is, we all know that things are going to change and everyone is talking about the new normal. So what is the future of travel going to look like after COVID-19, after all of this crisis is over? So my presentation is based on the brief that we prepared.
Perfect. I look forward to hear more. Please feel free to share your screen.
Sure, I'll do that. Just a second. Sorry, bear with me.
No, don't worry. Take your time. I think one of the next destinations for me will be Colorado because the weather looks very nice.
Thank you. I just saw a bird fly in front of me. Okay, so you can see my screen right now?
Yes. Okay, if you want, you can also zoom it a little bit and it should be fine. Yes, we can see it even better now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll get started. Bismillah.
Bismillah.
These are the authors of the report, the 4 authors of this brief, which I'll be going through. And first, just a little bit to set the expectations in terms of this brief and the purpose of it. So we're not talking about, this doesn't address the immediate post-crisis situation right now, whether it's in a few months. It's actually, as you mentioned, rightly mentioned in my introduction, it talks about 1 year from now or 1.5 years from now when this crisis is resolved. So this is the framework that we're looking at in terms of this presentation. So 1 to 3 years from now. And the brief is structured as follows. So I'll very briefly share travel stats and figures before COVID hit us. and then the impact on the crisis. And then the bulk of the presentation is focusing on the 13 signals of what this future will look like, from signals of activities that we're seeing right now, and then I'll share an action plan. So this is an outline of this presentation, and I will get started with, and I won't spend much time going through everything on this slide, but wanted to share that on the top, as we probably know, the value of the industry was 8.8 trillion, and it contributed 10.4% of global GDP. It supported 319 jobs. And then if you go down the chart in the middle, we're highlighting the top countries by tourism receipts by region, and also the top globally. So number one is the US, followed by Spain, France, then Thailand, and the UK. Now, in terms of, if you look at the left, the tourism-specific challenges pre-COVID, some of the challenges were sustainability issues, over-tourism, which is related to sustainability. The industry is and continues to be highly fragmented and in need of regulation. Now, in terms of some of the global crises that have been identified in a survey of global futurists and leaders, it's interesting to see that one of the top in terms of impact is infectious diseases, which what we're experiencing right now. And now, if you look at the left, there's some challenges by sector. I won't go through all of this. I want to make sure we have time to discuss the signals in a little bit more detail. But I'm happy to share this presentation with anyone who is interested. Now, okay. in terms of the impact, so we shared what travel was before this crisis. Now, in terms of the impact, we're looking at the impact on consumer behavior, on the industry, and then on governments. So in terms of the impact on consumer behavior, there are 4 areas of impact. Number one is health and safety concerns. And you see some stats in terms of COVID. Those are a little bit, few weeks old, but so definitely the numbers are higher. Number 2 is domestic travel is definitely on the rise. And number 3 is intent to travel varies across generations, and I'll provide some stats on that. And then number 4 is substitutes to travel, or basically what people are doing as alternatives to travel. They're not able to travel, so what are they doing? Now, in terms of domestic travel becoming popular, OECD predicts that 75% of the tourism economy will be this year in 2020 will be from domestic travel. Now, in terms of intent to travel being different across generations, and you see in the middle we have some statistics in terms of from a survey by Bloom Consulting, and another survey shows that only 11% of millennials will not travel because of the pandemic, compared to 25% baby boomers. So this is an interesting statistic that would be relevant as one of the signals in terms of intent, younger generations being more willing to travel amid pandemic concerns. Now, in terms of substitutes to travel, we've all witnessed, I think, seeing more people consuming media, getting in touch with family and friends online, a rise in video conferencing. So some stats on the bottom below, there's been an increase in video game traffic, according to Verizon. There's been 1,000% increase in Facebook groups, which is a relatively new feature. And then Snapchat also has seen an increase in video chats. Zoom has seen 101% increase in stock, and it's now valued at 50 billion. And a very interesting stat is that it's now worth more than the seven biggest airlines combined.
Wow.
And then, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Zoom. And there's an 28% increase in Netflix revenue compared to the same period last year. And then also another activity of substitute to travel that people are doing while they're stuck at home is taking online classes. Udemy has seen a 425% increase in enrollment. So these are some statistics related to consumer behavior. Now, in terms of impact on the industry, there are 5 areas of impact. Number 1 is aviation and hospitality sectors that have been the most impacted. And you see some stats. I'm not going to go through all the figures. Small businesses are in crises. And now, according to WTTC, 80% of travel and tourism businesses are small and medium enterprises. And according to OECD, over 50% of small businesses will not survive the next few months of this crisis. So this is an alarming fact or stat that's relevant to, and we all know there's so many, as the WTTC figure shows, so many of travel businesses are small and medium enterprises. Number 3, in terms of impact, is innovation in touchless travel and in hygiene and health screening protocols. Now, we've all witnessed how we've seen hotels come up with kiosks, check-in kiosks, and also airports and touchless payment. And actually, leaders of travel companies are saying, large travel companies and hospitality companies are saying that technology that they had slated for the next 10 years, they've actually started implementing in just 2-3 months. So definitely this crisis has accelerated the application of technology, especially related to touchless travel. Now, in terms of health and hygiene, we've seen so many certifications come up and emerge, and some are led by countries such as Turkey has a countrywide certification, Thailand, and a few other countries, and then some are private initiatives. One is by the WTTC, it's the Safe Travels Seal, and then there are initiatives by hotels in collaboration with medical centers, as well as collaboration with insurance companies. So we've seen a lot of activity quickly emerge to reassure travelers on health and safety and trying to set some standards and provide certifications. Now, also in terms of impact on the industry, we've seen pivots and aggressive promotion. So we've seen companies change or offer alternative services, and I'll provide some examples later on in the signals. And we've seen Qatar Airlines, for example, they had a very aggressive promotion a couple of months ago, offering discounted flights and also the ability to change the flights and change the destination city. So we've seen others as well in terms of aggressive promotions. And number 5 is the financial viability and investment implications. Now, expectedly, we've seen a drop in investments, but I also wanted to share a ray of hope in that even during this crisis, there have been investments secured. So Norwegian Cruise Line, they secured 400 million in investments. We've seen 2 travel startups, Fly Now, Pay Later, which is based in London. They raised a substantial amount of investment, and also we've seen Hotel Data Cloud raise 350,000 investment. They are based in the UAE. And Traveloka, actually, this figure has now been updated to 250 million. They expect to raise, and there's an investment. A venture capital company actually raised money for a fund, $80 million fund to invest in travel and transportation technology. So it's important to share that there is some ray of hope, and there are investment activities still occurring within this crisis. Now, in terms of the impact on government policies, so the government has been supporting the industry and has been providing subsidies to support the industry, and particularly the aviation and hospitality to prevent its collapse. It has also been active in imposing travel restrictions and regulations.
Sister, I'm sorry to interrupt.
And,
it looks like we are hearing
yeah.
some echo in the background. I'm not sure if it is some interference of any device that you have.
Oh, do you still hear it right now?
Yes.
Do you hear an echo?
It's like
Is this
some
better,
noise. It's a bit better now. Yeah, please carry on.
Okay, let me know. Stop me if you hear anything, and I'll try and. Can you hold on just a moment? I'll try and see if they're because we're here with family, so maybe that's the noise that you hear. Just this moment.
Okay. Yeah. Don't worry, sister.
Is this better? Is this any
it's
better?
the same, but you can carry on. Oh, now it stopped.
Okay, hopefully. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect. I'm sorry. Please carry on.
So I would. Oh yes, and please stop me if you hear that again. But I was on impact on government policies, and number 3 was travel bubbles. And 𝗬𝗃𝘁𝘂𝗁 and I were just chatting before the start of this webinar. We're talking about how countries have travel bubbles or travel corridors where they allow travel between them without requiring quarantine. So this is an impact on governments that they have been leading. And then medical needs definitely has been a priority. Governments have been prioritizing being able to provide and address medical needs of locals and also our visitors as well. And then sustainability regulation that, as we know, the travel impacts SDGs, and that's an area also that governments are looking to regulate further and further. So these are the 3 areas of impact. We spoke about impact on consumers, on the industry, and on government policy. Now, this is all kind of background to the main section of our presentation, which is the 13 signals. So signals of activities that we are seeing right now that predict what the future of travel post the COVID-19 crisis will look like. So the 13 signals, 8 of them are related to the industry and 5 to governments. And I will go through them in more detail. So number 1, in terms of the industry, hygiene has become a criteria, and I've shared some of the initiatives in terms of implementing hygiene and cleaning protocols and the safety and hygiene stamp of approval by WTTC. So this is definitely, and this we expect will continue. Having gone through this crisis and gone through this pandemic, it will always be a concern that it may re-emerge or another pandemic might occur. So this is a signal that we expect will continue post this crisis. Another is, number 2 is the contactless travel innovation. And as I mentioned, innovation has accelerated, and we expect this to continue. Having actually started the innovations and touchless payment methods and kiosks and all of this, as well as, for example, robotics in hotels to avoid or to lessen human contact. This we expect will continue post the crisis. It will not stop. This accelerated innovation will continue. Similarly, the rise in domestic travel also is a signal that we expect to continue. So we understandably the current rise is because of the crisis and because it's safer to travel domestically. But we expect that as travelers explore their local destination, they realize this is an option that they can continue, and also destinations will continue to focus and customize their products for local travelers, and that's a way also to hedge their risks. So they're not, in case of any future crisis, they're not fully dependent on international tourists, but they also part of their revenue is focused on domestic travel as well. Number 4 is there's an opportunity for boutique travel agencies, and this might be at first counter intuitive in terms of because we already spoke about the impact on small businesses and that they're heavily impacted and some of them will not survive. But we do see a ray of hope for especially medium-sized travel agencies who are able to provide excellent customer service. They're able to provide their customers with assurances in terms of telling them what is required in their destination that they're traveling to, and also they will be able to assist them in providing any documentation that's necessary. So we see this trend as something that will continue beyond this crisis. Now, in terms of number 5, that's millennials and the older Gen Zs are an important segment. Now, millennials were already an important segment for travel and tourism, but we expect that they will become an even more important segment based on the stats that I previously shared in terms of they are more willing to travel, more willing to take risks, even within a crisis situation. So this is a segment that's going to be even more important for the industry. Now, sustainability as a priority, and we realize that already there are some segments that are focusing on sustainability, but we expect more travelers to be focused and interested in traveling sustainably, especially after seeing the positive effects of the standstill. You know, we all heard about clearer skies and busy cities and waterways that are clear. So we expect that traveler segments, some of them will wish to continue traveling sustainably beyond this crisis. Now, number 7, funding opportunities for travel tech startups. The examples I provided in terms of companies and startups that were able to raise funds, those were mainly in the field of travel technology, and we definitely see an opportunity for this that will continue post the COVID-19 crisis. And number 8 is broadening business models to hedge tourism risks. So in terms of, I shared the stats of alternative activities that people are doing when they were not able to travel. And we've seen companies provide services in line with these activities. So, for example, Air Canada recently launched an at-home screening service, video screening service for their loyalty program members. Now, while this is free of charge right now and it's only for their loyalty program members, this is an example of a service that may be offered for a fee and can continue post the COVID-19 crisis. And it's something they already have the streaming capabilities for their flights. So it's a service within their area of capabilities and expertise, but it's expanding it to an area that's not their core business, but it can be an additional revenue stream, especially within a crisis. And we've seen Airbnb and 𝗧𝗃𝗁, which is a tour and travel company, we've seen them offer virtual travel and experiences with local hosts and guides. And some of them are free of charge, but some of them are paid. So this is an example of additional revenue streams. Now, in terms of governments, so number 9, and this is the first in terms of the new normal, or the signals of the new normal for governments, they have realized that they need to strengthen their crisis preparedness, especially in case of future pandemics, and also in terms of supporting the industry. So governments need to invest in aviation and hospitality and to help prevent it from collapsing in the future. And also they need to support small businesses and medium and small businesses, because they are actually an important part of the economy, and otherwise the economy would collapse. And also in terms of governments, they need to be active in terms of retraining tourism workers, because not all of the tourism jobs that have been lost will be regained or will come back after the crisis, but some of these employees will need to be trained in other jobs. Now, number 10 is regulating hygiene and safety certification. And we've seen that some countries and governments have launched certifications of their own. Some are initiatives like the private sector, some are international organizations. So this is something that needs to be regulated, and we see that continuing in the future and being part of the regulation of travel and tourism. Hygiene and safety we feel will be here to stay. Now, tourism corridors that we touched upon, and right now the focus is in terms of safety, so countries agreeing on tourism corridors for safety. But another activity that can continue is countries agreeing on tourism corridors as a destination. So countries that share the same features or can become one unified destination for travelers. That will be something that may continue in the future as well. And destinations and attractions will configure for safety. So we've seen right now a lot of museums and attractions, in order to open, they've had to invest in technology that allows them for virtual queuing, for example, through an app rather than queuing in person. And we expect, since these efforts have already been invested in, that they will continue post the crisis. We've seen, for example, destinations, in order to avoid overcrowding, they're introducing dynamic pricing. So, for example, in museums, the entry price will be higher during peak hours and lower in off hours, and that's in addition to being an initiative for this current situation in terms of avoiding overcrowding. It's in the future, it solves overcrowding, the issue of overcrowding in general. So this is another signal for governments. Now, for governments as well, the final signal is incorporating sustainability in tourism plans. And we've seen, for example, after this crisis, Venice decided to impose a tax for day trippers. And this is to avoid over-tourism and also to encourage longer stays, which is better for the economy. And this standstill has allowed governments of destinations that are suffering from over-tourism to really rethink their plans and to plan more sustainably, so sustainably for the environment as well as for the local people and local economy. And one example of, is Greenpeace. It's demanding from governments that airline bailouts come with stricter conditions in terms of taking action for impact on climate change. So these are some signals that we're seeing that may continue post the COVID-19 crisis in terms of governments as well as the industry. Now, in terms of the final section of this presentation is providing an action plan, first for the industry and then for governments. And before I share some of the actions that we recommend, let me just remind everyone that we're not talking about the immediate future. We're not talking about the next 6 to 12 months. We're talking beyond that time period. And our recommendations are divided into returns. So how can tourism basically transition post the COVID-19 crisis, and then reform, what changes need to be done operationally to be ready for the new normal, or for the for reinventing, really, which is the next phase. It's reinventing, providing new solutions, providing things that can be done more efficiently. Now, in terms of, for the industry, in terms of return, so obviously incorporate health and safety measures, including cleanliness, hygiene protocols, and also contactless technology, and communicating this in promotional material. And this is very important because in addition to the real risk of related to safety and hygiene, there's also a psychological impact that we need to realize, that we need to not just have the safety regulations in place, but it's very important to communicate that to would-be travelers, that this is something, and we're already seeing, I'm seeing this a lot, for example, hotels letting their travelers know this is what, even car rentals, this car has been safely sanitized and cleaned. So that's in terms of return. Now, in terms of reform, developing business models that are able to sustain the crisis in travel and tourism. So, for example, hotels can offer catering at home, and restaurants can offer, for example, frozen and prepared meals or groceries. And these are some things that we've seen during the crisis, but it's an impact that can continue post the current COVID crisis. And definitely for travel companies to include domestic travel as one of the important segments that they are targeting. And it's important to develop products and services, because sometimes the products and services, they are more geared to international tourists, but it's important to prepare these products for local domestic travelers, and also to communicate that very clearly in the marketing material.
Sister,
now,
sorry to interrupt.
In terms of reinvent, and yes,
I think we are listening to the sound again. I'm not sure if maybe it's some interference.
Yeah, nothing has changed from my end. Are you still hearing it? Is
yes.
this better?
I think we can still hear you. So yeah, you can carry on. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to be more clear in case of the background sound.
Thank you.
So in terms of the reinvent, we're looking at different sectors, and I realize, of course, we're not covering all of the sectors, but we chose to focus on destinations, travel agencies and OTAs, online travel agencies, hotels, and then restaurants and food services. So in terms of destinations, now the MICE industry, the meetings industry has been highly impacted because it's all based on large conventions. So definitely this needs to be reconfigured in terms of future outbreaks. Implementing public and private partnerships to support destinations, it's something that has to be an effort with the government as well as the private sectors. I don't think either can do separately. And then implementing strategies to attract investment, especially with a lot of the new hygiene and safety measures. These are all expenses incurred by destinations and by the industry, and additional investment is required. Now, in terms of travel agencies and OTAs, we've seen how technology has been at the forefront of investment interest, for example. So it's important to focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning, and to tailor offerings, to be able to really tailor their offerings to what the customers want. And the hotels to continue what they have started in terms of touchless experiences, or touchless guest services, and based on technology. This is something that needs to be continued. Now, in terms of restaurants who have been highly impacted post-COVID, they need to consider providing even high-end restaurants. They need to consider providing delivery as one of their services. As we saw, that was the one component that continued in terms of demand even during the crisis, and perhaps focusing on the cloud kitchen model, which is basically a centralized kitchen used by several hotels and used by several restaurants, and that focuses on food delivery. So these are a few of the action plans that are based on the signals that we are seeing for the industry. Now, moving on, I will share some of the action plans for the government. And again, this is after the immediate crisis, and also looking at return, reform, and reinvent. So in terms of return, definitely having strong contingency plans in terms of future pandemics or any future crises. These need to be strongly in place, as we've witnessed for most governments. The pandemic has been a big surprise. Now, in terms of reform, providing industry-related investment strategy. So, and these need to be public-private initiative. So both the governments as well as the private sector doing that together. And then also preparing for future crises, and also addressing sustainability in terms of the local communities, the environment, and economic sustainability within this climate of future threats of pandemics as well as other crises. Now, in terms of reinventing, so looking at new policies. So in terms of health and safety, definitely there has to be stronger regulation to prevent outbreaks in the future, and that has to be closely coordinated with the private sector. Economic enablement. So as we mentioned, investing in airlines and hospitality, as well as other sectors. So they're able to support them in terms of any future threats, and then also focusing on public-private partnerships to support the industry, and helping support funding for hygiene and safety expenses, because this is a big expense. And for the large, for example, hospitality companies, it's an expense that they have had to incur. But for smaller hotels, for private-owned small businesses, it can be a challenge having to endure the expense of providing the additional health and safety regulation. And then in terms of social services, and this is a recommendation that we also included in another brief that is so focused on government services in general, not just for the travel sector. And we addressed possibly providing a universal basic income. So as people have been losing jobs, and in the future with jobs being more and more automated, there's a need for a universal basic income, or an income that is guaranteed for all, that is not dependent on certain jobs. So this is one area that we recommend. So this is the end of my presentation. I'm summarizing the signals for the industry as well as for governments, and then the action plan. And I'm happy to, if anyone would like to reach out, if you would like a copy of this presentation, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn. My name is Reem El Shafaki, or through the DinarStandard website. Back to you, 𝗧𝗿𝘃𝗁.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much, Mr. Reem. There are so many good points here. I really don't know where to start. I'm particularly interested in some areas, and because we are in a virtual event for travel companies and for the travel industry in general, like for example, which kind of opportunities you foresee for boutique travel agencies, and what is the path for them to start reaping the benefits from the current situation?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, and yes, we mentioned it's there's a ray of hope for boutique travel agencies in terms of, now we all know that OTAs, online travel agencies, especially the very large ones like Booking.com and Agoda, they have really dominated the industry, but we do see a ray of hope in terms of the current needs of travelers in this environment. There's a lot to navigate in terms of, they have concerns about their own health and safety. They are not sure in terms of the regulation that is required by different destinations. Like, for example, Cambodia, for example, is requiring a $3,000 deposit from foreign visitors to cover any coronavirus-related expenses in case they get sick, or in case they need to be tested. So things like that, travelers may not know. And for example, if an immunity passport is required in the future, if there is certain documentation that is required by certain destinations, all of this will be very beneficial to have a dedicated person, not a call center, but someone at a smaller boutique travel agency that you can call and get detailed information from, who can help facilitate obtaining some of these required documentation for you. So we do see an opportunity for companies who are able to provide excellent customer service and unique services for their customers. This is really this is an additional service. For example, what activities and attractions are open or not because of certain situations, what insurance is recommended. All of this, being able to provide this, will definitely increase customer loyalty.
Yeah, no, and I perfectly see your point. Even before the pandemic, the role of a travel agent is also to be someone that is trusted and can actually hear the customer, in this case the traveler, and attend to his need by informing them the right path. And now it's even more, because it will become not only a business relation, but also personal relation, because the travel agent will have much more responsibility to inform about the guidelines of each country, destination, the government rules, and as you said, the travel corridors, because now it's so much overwhelming information. We don't know what to follow. But with the travel agency, maybe it's become more personalized, the experience in terms of getting the information and deciding for booking a travel, right? And yeah, I can perfectly see your point in there.
Thank you.
one of the things as well that you've mentioned is some examples of investments that were secured during the COVID-19 crisis. Do you think that halal travel companies also have an opportunity to secure investment?
Absolutely, absolutely, and there is current interest in Muslim-focused OTAs, online travel agencies. So Halal Booking had closed the funding round last year in December. They raised 2.4 million, and they also recently secured 2 million in a UK government-backed coronavirus loan. We've seen interest from venture capitalists before this COVID-19 crisis. For example, 𝗬𝗃𝗃𝗃 Partners, which is a venture capital firm based in Southeast Asia, they coined the term Taqwa Tech, which really summarizes their interest in investing in Muslim-focused technology firms. And 2 years ago, in 2018, they were one of the main investors that invested in 𝗦𝗃𝗃𝗃 and allowed it to raise 16 million and acquire 𝗧𝗿𝘃𝗁𝘃. And they also they invested in Pakistan-based online travel agency 𝗧𝗿𝘃𝗁𝗃. So we're definitely seeing an interest. We're seeing an overall interest in investing in travel technology, and then specifically in terms of halal travel companies, specifically OTAs, online travel companies, we are seeing an interest in investing in those who are focused on the latest technology in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning that allows them to provide more customized and intuitive services. So definitely this is a trend that we see accelerating and continuing beyond this crisis and even during this crisis.
Definitely, and I see that there is a lot of interest in innovation and technology. So I think we still have hope for the travel industry and for the travel players. And I'm very keen also to know, which kind of new technologies we start to see in restaurants, in hotels, in the attractions. For example, I've seen the other day some restaurants in Mallorca and even in Lisbon have now implemented QR codes, to make the orders online. So to make the orders, directly in the device, it becomes such more easier and practical and at the same time safe, right? So do you think that it would be more like a government initiative to invest in technology rather than private companies, or will be something balanced in between?
I think it definitely needs to be support. Right now, the initiatives we're seeing, they're mainly from private companies.
Okay.
And the example that you mentioned, for example, the QR code, yes, this is an innovative solution to avoid touching a physical menu, where you just use your phone and scan the QR code, and then you see the menu on your phone and you can order that way. And also the examples from the airports, the kiosks, and also check-in kiosks at hotels. So these are all private sector initiatives, but I see them in the future. They need to be more in the form of public-private partnerships. So government need to encourage the private sector in terms of providing incentives, providing in the form of tax cuts, for example, or grants and loans. They should encourage training in this type of technology and innovation. So I feel this is how governments can support. And for example, in Dubai, Dubai is definitely pushing for innovation and supporting innovation. So they have provided $46 million in incentives and in the form of services to entrepreneurs and to small businesses, even before the COVID-19 crisis. It has been an area of focus for the UAE government, and specifically the Dubai government. and for example, there's the initiative of Smart Dubai is to make Dubai a leading smart city,
Yeah.
and using Internet of Things technology. So different parts of different attractions and destinations and services are all connected and are able to be controlled through devices. So this is it. It definitely needs to be encouraged. In summary, to answer your question, innovation in touchless technology and other technology needs to be supported and encouraged by governments, but then also led by the private sector. And the private sector, is encouraged by seeing the interest in investors in investing in this type of technology, and also in terms of the need. And something like this, the current crisis highlighted the need for such touchless and innovative technology. So this will be basically a public-private initiative, and really supported by the government and led by the sector.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because I think we all need to work together, not only from the government and from the private sector, because we are all in the same boat. In the end of the day, we all want the same thing, and we are all interconnected in somehow, directly or indirectly. And if you want for boost tourism and other industries as well, we need to really collaborate. So yeah, I mean, it's a great point. And yeah, we are almost reaching to our end of this session. I think it has been really, really mind-shifting for people that are, and companies and governments that are watching this session. Sister Reem, any word of advice for companies that are struggling at the moment, and where should they focus their attention, in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, really focusing on definitely focusing on possibly pivoting, like not clinging to the core services that they are providing, but being open-minded in terms of seeing what other services they have the ability to provide. And like, for example, we mentioned the example of Air Canada. We mentioned the example of Airbnb and Viator, and there's an example from the UK, Halal Travel Company, Halal Travel Guide. They're offering online. They started offering online guided tours that their local guides provide, and this is a way of continuing to support their local guides as well as continuing some revenue stream for the company. So definitely focusing on how you can continue having a revenue stream even amid a crisis, even if it's a small revenue stream, and considering pivoting to additional services, not just focusing on the core service that they provide, and definitely focusing on innovation. We've seen this as a thread of what has continued to really lead in terms of the ability to recover, the ability to continue to provide services within constraints. So definitely continue that, and work. And I feel also the private sector and private companies need to work together, perhaps to support each other and to get support from the government.
Okay, perfect. That has been very, very enlightening, and I'm pretty sure this will be taken very seriously for everyone that is watching this. I will just finalize by asking you, what is your favorite or your next holiday destination, since you are already in holidays?
To be honest, I'd love to go to Indonesia and have
Oh,
a
wow.
really authentic experience at one of the islands, not Bali, one of the smaller islands, perhaps staying at a homestay. So one of the houses that are run by a family, and getting to have an immersive experience. That's the style of travel that I love and my family loves as well, is really getting to experience the local culture firsthand, not in a touristy way. So that will be when I can travel internationally.
Inshallah.
That's on my list, inshallah.
I'm convinced that brother 𝗧𝗍𝘂𝘁, he was in our talk earlier, and he's from Indonesia, and he will definitely be the right person to advise and give you the right tips.
Perfect. I'll reach out to him.
Sister Reem, it has been a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, 𝗦𝗃𝘁𝘂𝘁. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who has joined this webinar. I appreciate that you took the time to listen in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, my dear audience, we are reaching the end of this session. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I really hope that this has been very good and beneficial for you, for your business. And yeah, please keep tuned for the next series of the eTourism Revolution Talks. The next session will be tomorrow, and it will be very interesting as well. Okay, thank you. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.